Hello, missionaries. This is Mark Bartek. I wanted to send out a quick message to you, just kind of expressing what's new about SLS18 this year and what can you expect. I talked through some of these things with the regional directors from the East in the last couple of days, and they said it was extremely helpful and it would be worthwhile if I shared some of these things with you as well. So I want to walk you through it and kind of take you from the very beginning so that you understand kind of where this comes from and why it is that we're doing SLS 18 the way that it is right now. About 2 years ago, the regional directors got together right after SLS 16, and we were looking at the goals that we'd set, the things that we'd done, the work that we had accomplished, and we began to ask ourselves the question, what specifically do we want to do with our conferences as we look at in the future at the conference cycle, as we look at the impact that it's having? And when we stopped and we asked ourselves, between SLS and Seek, the training of leaders for the equipping of spiritual multiplication, or the bringing along of leaders in order to help bring along lots of people for the sake of conversions, that win stage versus the build and send stage, which one do we want to really put our energies into even more? And we realized at that time that we wanted SLS to be our bread and butter. We wanted it to be the place where we could be equipping the leaders in the new evangelization for the sake of the Great Commission. And so that's where this whole conversation began. 2 years ago, the regional directors talking with the events team, with the executive team, and really in asking, how do we make this to be a more significant event than even Seek? We don't want to downplay Seek, but we really want to make SLS to be something that's spectacular. And so that's where SLS really came from. Now, what we believe has taken place is that we have blended all of the best elements of Seek with SLS in order to bring about just an all-star event that's going to really rock worlds and change lives. Now, what does that mean? In Seek, we see particular components that are present, right? And it's really anchored into the keynote and the impact sessions as well as the entertainment. Adoration night is the biggest night, and it's something that's really significant. And then we also have mass and confessions available throughout the conference. So these elements, I think, are the core elements of Seek. What do we see specifically with SLS? What are we going to see with SLS? Well, it's going to have all these same components. Obviously, we're going to be having the Mass every single day, and students are going to encounter our Lord in the Eucharist. We're also going to be having adoration every single day, where the students who are there are going to be able to spend significant time praying and encountering Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament in the midst of the entire experience. But not only that, we're actually going to be breaking the entire participant group up into 3 particular tracks by day. So you'll have the lifelong mission track. This is for alumni. Those are parish workers, people who are out in the world, maybe not on college campus. We'll have the most significant part will be our collegiate outreach track. That's where we're serving students. This is the heart, the core of our mission, and we want to make sure that we're doing a great job with that. But then there will also be, in addition to that, a campus ministers and chaplain track that's going to be really geared at helping those that are leading others on campus and around the country to be able to be equipped with the mission that we believe the Lord has poured out on the church through the Great Commission and his blessing through the new evangelization, and that we've made many mistakes, but also experienced many blessings through the midst of in doing this. So each of the days 2 through 4, so day 1, if people arrive, day 2, 3, and 4 will be dedicated within these 3 tracks to win, build, and send. So day 2 is win, and the participants will be split, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that's going to look like beyond. What else is going to be happening? We're going to have impact and training sessions, and this is where the rubber begins to meet the road on the effectiveness of SLS and the differentiation between what it is and Seek. So at SLS and Seek, there will both be impact sessions. So these are the tracks where there's lots of different things going on, and you're going to be able to go to a variety of topics with speakers, but they're going to be themed towards win, build, and send given on the particular days. Each day, 1/3 of the participants of each track will attend a 2 Timothy 2:2, which you've heard from me before, many witnesses, teach to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. A training session that 1/3 of the participants will go to, that then they will teach the rest of their group in the afternoon, and I'll talk with you about how that's going to look in just a minute. Later that day, there will be power sessions then, and those that went through the training session will then go and teach the rest of their group in this. This really is the equipping and the opportunity for them to be able to experience to experience in a profound way how to teach others. And I think it's really, as Father Andrew Dickinson from South Dakota State said, I love SLS because Seek is such a kind of a retreat high that students receive. But when they go to SLS, they walk away equipped and competent to be able to do the most critical elements of the mission. And that's what the power sessions and the training sessions are really dedicated to. And then obviously that night we're going to have great keynotes. Father Mike Schmitz, Curtis Martin, Sarah Swafford, the list goes on and on. These are going to be TED-style talks for the most part, helping to kind of offer inspiration as well as equipping students for the work of the new evangelization. So I think that we'll see a lot of great experiences through that. So when we put it all together, what's it actually going to look like and how is it going to work? Well, when we get down to the nuts and bolts, days 2 through 4 are the really critical piece. So every student who arrives will be set into a group of 9 other students. I'm not exactly sure how it's going to be broken down, but each of these groups will have a missionary leader who's going to take them. On day 2, the triangles in this particular group will go off to I'm using shapes because it's a little bit easier to illustrate. The triangles will go off to the training session in the morning of day 2, while the circles and the squares will go off to impact sessions where they'll be able to choose different sessions throughout the course of that day to experience and to hear different speakers and kind of have just a great overall time. And then the triangles will be in a training session. It'd be a little bit longer, a little bit more intensive, dedicated towards experiential learning. So the opportunity to learn and then to teach and practice. And then later that day, the triangles will come back with the rest of the group in the power session, and the triangles will teach the circles and the squares. Now, that's the only time throughout the course of that week that the triangles will be teaching, because then on day 3, the circles will go off to their training session, and then that afternoon we'll come back and teach the triangles and the squares. And that morning, on day 3, the triangles and the squares will be off at impact sessions. And then day 4, the squares go off to their training session while the triangles and the squares are off at their impact sessions, and then coming together. And this is how we believe we've been able to blend the most effective components of SLS, the teaching teachers, to be able to teach that afternoon, with the inspirational and the really motivational pieces of Seek, the impact sessions, and how they're being brought together. Now we're going to explain how this is all going to work in the days and weeks to come, and when each participant arrives, but we think that it provides a good experience without overwhelming students with some of I didn't know I was going to have to do all this, or I didn't really want to do that. And so they're going to have to do some, which we think is going to be really great for them, but at the same time, it's not going to force them to do everything. Now, the thing that has been most significant for me in these conferences is looking at what can we do, or what is the impact that this is having specifically on spiritual multiplication. I shared with the organization a year ago that I am a convert to our conferences. I used to believe that they were a mission drain, that they were sideways energy, that I didn't see how they were really driving spiritual multiplication. If we could just leave our missionaries on campus throughout this time and not have to focus on all the other things that feel like such a heavy investment, that we would see our mission continue to grow. But within mission results, what we find is that SLS is equipping students to be faithful and fruitful in the work on campus. So what happened? When we look at SLS versus Seek in 16 versus 17, we saw that those who were disciples who were not leading a Bible study before the conference versus after the conference, 47% of those who went to SLS started a Bible study that had never led a study before after SLS. Those students who didn't attend SLS that were disciples, only 11% of those started a Bible study afterwards. So we see at SLS, students are 4 times more likely to start a Bible study after SLS. And you sit tight. Those who were disciples and became disciple makers were 3 times, almost 4 times more likely to make a disciple after SLS as well. So we went from 9% of those who didn't attend SLS making a disciple to 36% of those who did go to SLS who made a disciple afterwards. So not only that, what we see is that this is equipping our students to go from the conference back to their campus to have a direct impact. My estimation, having been in Focus for almost a dozen years, is that there is absolutely nothing that we do that is going to increase the likelihood of your students being effective in mission more than SLS. Now, we could send them on mission trips. We can spend lots of time with them. But if you want to increase the likelihood that they're going to start a Bible study or make a disciple by 4 times, there's nothing else that you can do than SLS. We hope to see this continue, and we also hope to see, I'm sorry, I'm wrong way, mute this Prezi thing. We also hope to see that your students are asking the same questions. How can I help my disciples become more effective for the mission? So when you think not only about how are you making invitations, but how are you asking your disciples to think about what are the things that they can do that will be most effective in order to be able to make disciples and help their disciples make disciples? What is their plan? Are they equipping them effectively? Are they praying for them? Are they building them up? And is SLS part of that process? Now, obviously, 11% of those that didn't attend the last SLS still made disciples, and 9% still made disciples, and 11% still started Bible studies. But for my money, there's no greater investment than the work that happens at SLS. And I think it's because it creates this amazing opportunity for cross-pollination. You see lots and lots of other people, this really mountaintop experience, as well as equipping them for the sake of the mission. So these are some of the things that I think that we've seen throughout SLS and the impact that it's having. And I just want to encourage you in your recruitment and your prayer and in your preparation for SLS to really think about how is God using this to maybe unhinge your heart so that he can open you up to pour into you. Because my greatest hope is not just that the students become effective in mission, that your presence at SLS will help you to have a greater experience of mission and to be more effective for the sake of the mission as well. And so if you have questions, please contact me, contact the events team, contact Dave Trotter. I think SLS is going to be an amazing experience, and I'm really excited to be able to be there with you. I look forward to seeing you all. God bless you.